This is the Culture Study Podcast, and I'm Anne Helen Peterson.
Hi, I'm Sophie Strauss, and I'm a stylist for regular people.
So, okay, stylist, I think people hear this term and they think like, I don't know, like Rachel Zoe being a stylist for like the it girls of the early 2000s. Like they think it's for fancy people, but you're a stylist for normal people. So can you describe the range of people that you work with and the kinds of things they're looking for when they hire you?
Absolutely. You know, it's funny you mentioned Rachel Zoe. She's totally my foundational style. Like, who else would we have seen, right? That's like the only...
Totally. That was like my first understanding of like a stylist imposing their understanding of style onto people, right? Like just like the unifying threads of style. And you see like I'm trying to think of who she styled, like Misha Barton.
Was it like Cameron Diaz?
Yes.
She used to, I think, style Anne Hathaway. I think. I mean, it was also just that, quite frankly, and this is we should do a whole other podcast about this, but part of why that was the beginning of the stylist in the sort of like public imagination is because it was also really the beginning of when celebrities were as visible as they now are all the time, like the sort of explosion of like tabloid and paparazzi culture, and this idea that you actually might want to pay somebody to help make sure you like quote unquote look good all the time, at first for red carpets because they were these sort of brand and image making opportunities, but then it was like when you go to get groceries and all of these things. But to your first question, growing up I like absolutely loved fashion and style, and all I really knew of this particular job was Rachel Zoe. And that, while I found it deeply entertaining, was not actually appealing to me at all as a career. And so I didn't consider it. And then I actually pursued a career in music and was working as a nanny and sort of doing like other creative pursuits for work. And all the while, I mean, I worked, to be clear, I worked fashion retail for a long time, like through high school and college. So I also think I learned a lot about the industry and clothing that way. It's not like I went from zero knowledge to this job.
Yeah.
But I wasn't working consistently on like I want to be a stylist track, which is very much a thing now. I was just helping my friends get dressed when they were having not even struggles. I think the thing I've really come to is moments of transition. So whether that was a transition like a new job or a new city, or a transition like a new body size, bigger, smaller, a new gender presentation, I was the first call, and I really cherished that.
Yeah.
And eventually, while my other music career was sort of not really panning out, though, you know, I'm at home yet. It could still happen. I think my music was good. But anyway, I started doing this on the side, and I kind of like on a whim was like, I wonder if people would pay for this. And I like posted about it on my Instagram, and the response was overwhelmingly yes. And I kind of built it as like a side gig. And then it very quickly overtook my like regular assistant job that I had at the time. And from there, Sophie Strauss Styling was born. So I really work with, I mean, like I said, with everybody. I work with people of all ages, genders, sizes, locations. So I've worked with people as young as 13 and as old as 80. I work with men, women, non-binary people, trans people. I work with people who are getting married. I work with people who are attending funerals. I work with people who want to feel better when they drop their kids off at carpool. And I work with people who do go to red carpets but are not celebrities. So like being in LA, I have a lot of people who may not be Anne Hathaway, but they're like, yeah, but I have to stand next to Anne Hathaway on the red carpet and I don't want to look like shit.
Totally. That's like my nightmare of like going, like being on a red carpet and doing like the stop and pose and like, what would I wear? How would my makeup be? Like you have to do all these considerations that celebrities kind of have outsourced for them, and you have to do them yourself. So, and you also help like Melody. Didn't you help Melody?
Oh yeah, that's how I'm here.
Melody, what happened?
I was invited to do like an onstage interview with Sarah Chappelle of Taylor Swift Styled, and I was like, I can't do a fashion interview wearing my current like athletic shorts and oversized t-shirt. So I found out about Sophie from the Big Undies newsletter.
So we're doing this whole like back to school theme of like, because I love back to school energy. It just really transports me to, even though I have no kids and don't go to school anymore, just that idea of like, okay, like let's go. In my case, it was this department store called the Bon Marché. Let's go to the Cube, which was the teens section, and like get like 2 pairs of pants and 2 tops, and like figuring out your first day of school outfit. Like, I loved that. So I wanted to do a series about it. I was like, Melody, please let me do this. And we're interviewing a bunch of different people about clothing, about style, and we're interviewing Corinne Fay of Big Undies.
Tell Corinne I say hi.
And you did an interview with Corinne. You did like her, she does like style interviews that are really fantastic. So many people have done them, including Lena Dunham, which is amazing.
Crazy.
But in that interview, there's this great picture of you in this like taffeta gown and fur stole. And I think sometimes people look at pictures of us when we're kids and are like, that person was into fashion. But I think all of us are into fashion in some way, or many of us are into fashion in some way when we're small. And then we get it gradually like flattened out of us in some way.
Oh my God, I have so many. That's a rich text you just laid out for me. Okay. So, first of all, I think one of the things is historically, culturally, if you will, on the Culture Study podcast, fashion has been one of the purviews of like marginalized demographics, right? It has historically been an area for women, queer people, people of color, people who have been colonized to try to find avenues of agency and expression that are still within their means as some other dominant force has tried to take that away. It's all fashion has obviously also been, or clothing has been a means of control and dominance in other ways. But what that has often meant is that the people who kind of feel excited and connected to it are people for whom that expression is precious. And I think the people who most often tend to think fashion is frivolous are people where their humanity is not really questioned based on what they're wearing. So you have a lot of like white bros who are like, who think it's either shallow or silly to care about fashion. And what that tends to tell me is if you quote unquote don't care. I mean, first of all, I don't even think that's real. I think most people care because, and that's a separate piece of this answer, but I think people care because clothes are communication. And so that feeling of even that, like the first day of school, what am I going to wear? The question at the core of that for every kid is, who am I going to be this year? And that's identity. And I don't think that fashion is, I'm not like, oh, fashion saves the world. It's the most important thing. Like there's a lot of awful, evil, villainous, well-dressed people out there. But I think that at its core, when you are not dressed in a way that feels good to you, it feels kind of like opening your mouth to speak and the wrong words come out. And so that's kind of at the core of like all of what, you know, we're talking about is like, why is fashion for everyone? And it's like, well, maybe I make a distinction between fashion and style. Like fashion to me is a little bit more tied to the industry and style is kind of a personal expression, but that's my semantics. But I think that's also why you don't have to be a fabulous gala-bound gal in a gown to have fashion feel or have how you dress feel important to you. You can be a person who lives on a remote island, or you can be a mom at carpool drop-off, and how you are experiencing the agency of self-presentation in that moment will matter.
I mean, I agree with all of this entirely. And I just like, as someone who I've gone through periods of like in and out of love of clothes. And I think probably a lot of people can identify with that. Like feelings when you felt more empowered to wear the things that felt very you, and times when you felt like your choices were limited or circumscribed by some forces. And sometimes that's like, my body keeps changing and I buy something and it no longer fits the way that it used to. Or this company that makes this thing that I think is gorgeous will not make it in my size. Or all the kids make fun of me when I wear the thing that I want to wear in school. Like, I have all of these moments of like very subtle incorporation. I grew up in like a small town in Idaho where there wasn't a lot of leeway about what was cool or what you should, quote, wear to school. And I remember yearning for a school uniform or loving the days that I wore my cheerleading uniform because it gave me that like release from trying to perform a certain type of like feminine, like 1998 femininity for the audience of my peers, right?
Yeah. Well, I think so. The first part of what that was, and it also goes back to the conversation about like being little kids who love fashion and then something kind of changes.
Yeah.
And I kind of think almost everybody has an experience like this, which is like I have a 4-year-old and I watch him get dressed and it is just so joyful and ridiculous.
Yeah.
And he is not looking in a mirror until the very end just to sort of admire.
Yeah.
He is not thinking about his body. He is not even really thinking, I mean, obviously not really thinking practically, but there's something so magic that gets squashed so young, and I think even younger when you are like socialized to be, you know, presenting femininity in a certain way. But I think every single client I've ever had and every person I've talked to, myself included, has some memory from childhood of putting something on that felt really good. Like, oh, this is so, I'm filled with joy. Like, yes.
Yep.
And walking out of the sort of like private sanctity of wherever you put that on, your room, your closet, whatever, and emerging into the public sphere, whether it was just like into your living room or a sibling or a parent or at school, and having somebody go, "What is that?"
Right.
And the core feeling of that is I believed myself when I said this felt good to me, and I was wrong.
Yeah.
And so that severs our trust with ourself, that we can kind of like follow our nose on what brings us joy.
Yep.
And then that gets reinforced like a million times more throughout like childhood and adolescence and adulthood. And unless you're really consciously going, how do I unpack that? Then
Right.
you end up in the position that you were talking about now, where you were saying even like the sort of freedom from the fatigue of trying to navigate all of these choices and being like relieved when you'd have to wear your cheerleading uniform. What you're getting at there is that for most people, getting dressed feels like a guessing game at where they don't hold any information. So it's like,
Yeah.
I hope I'm guessing correctly at what the outside world will somehow know is right or wrong, but I couldn't possibly know myself.
Yep.
And then it's
Yep.
like, well, yeah, no shit, that's not fun.
Right. And the people that I know who maintained style like throughout their lives, they had such a strong sense of self. And sometimes this came from their family, came from their parents, or it just was like just them. Like they're the weirdo in the school pictures, right? And what by weirdo I mean that with like great admiration and respect. Or in like their family photos, they picked out their outfit. Like the sense of self was so strong that no other voices could tamp it down. And that's when you get like style icons, right? Like
Totally.
that's it. And a lot of like I don't want to be a style icon, or that's not in my purview, but I would like to I would like to have that sense of self really shine through. And I feel like some of us are getting there a little bit more as we age, but then some of us are very confused by this matrix of like what is happening in the larger fashion world in this moment. And then also like many of us no longer being young girls anymore. Which is where a lot of the momentum of fashion is oriented, is towards like a 22-year-old consumer.
Of course. Of course. Well, I think the key there is the definition of style that I like to work from with my clients.
Yeah.
is very simple. It's that style is the expression of your personality and your preferences through your clothes. And why I came up with that definition, because I don't think that's like what the definition is in the dictionary.
Yeah.
Why I came up with that definition is because it puts all the agency in your hands. There's no following of any rules. There's no needing to be on trend or relevant or not dated or whatever. It's guided by two things, which is personality and preference. And it also allows those things to fluctuate in a very human way from day to day. And the thing I often remind people is like, I don't care if you wear sweatpants every single day of your life. If that feels like a choice you're making because you are prioritizing comfort, that's really different than if it feels like it's happening to you against your will because you don't know how to do anything else. And the reason that this very simple definition is so difficult for people to then execute, like for me to sit here and go, it's just your preferences and your personality and your clothing, run, go forth, dress stylishly. Most people would still not be able to go anywhere with that information because most of us have been taught to shop and to get dressed, kind of like if you had to cook without knowing what ingredients are. So you end up in this position where you're often trying to make an informed choice without information. So if you might notice, I don't like this shirt. Great, but why? What about it? And to your point about like you may never be a style icon and like not everybody's going to be a fashionista, not everybody's going to be a Michelin star chef, but I think all of us understand the value in being able to cook ourselves a nutritious meal. And then maybe from there you become somebody who kind of finds joy in experimenting with food, or maybe you are simply somebody who can adequately nourish yourself for the rest of your life. Both of those paths are valid, but if you're so far away that you can't even do the nourishing, we've got a problem. And it's the same thing with clothes.
Well, and like a nourishing meal that tastes good to you.
100%.
That you're not like choking
no, it's not,
down.
It's not punishment.
Right?
Yeah, it's not punishment. Exactly.
Today's episode is brought to you by Honeylove. Melody, you have some Honeylove praise to talk about.
And based on what you know I've been up to within the past month, where is the most critical place I could have worn my Honeylove bra?
A Hillary Duff concert?
Yes.
I love that I did it. I came up with it. It's so good. Okay.
It was 1,000,000 degrees. And I wore my Honeylove bra, and it was the absolute correct choice because I was supported enough to dance the night away.
Yeah.
But I also wasn't getting the like sweaty underboob chafing situation.
Yeah.
It was just, even at the end of the night, I was like, wow, I have to remember this for the next time we talk about Honeylove.
Yeah, because it's like this great like mix between a lot of support. Like I like the feeling of being just like sucked in like that sometimes. And but there's no underwire. So you're not like getting poked and prodded and that sort of
And
thing.
I wasn't like dying to take it off at the end of the concert.
Right. And no uniboob, right?
Right. Mainly, I just wasn't thinking about it, which is what you want from a bra at a concert.
This is the ultimate endorsement. Was it the crossover contour bra or the cloud embrace bra?
It was the crossover contour bra. No underwire. The fabric is so smooth. It doesn't have any of the like scratchy stuff that sometimes comes on bras. You can make the straps cross in the back, which I don't usually do, but that is a nice feature to have.
100%. So treat yourself to the most advanced bras and shapewear on the market. You can use our exclusive link to save 20% off Honeylove at honeylove.com/culture. That's honeylove.com/culture. After you check out, they're going to ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and Hillary Duff concert going and tell them that we sent you. Experience the new standard in comfort and support with Honeylove. Today's episode is brought to you by Article. So my friend is staying here for the week. We're calling it Camp Lummi Island. She didn't get any camps for her kids this week. So camp, in quotes, is just her kids running around with my other friend's kids all around the island. That's the camp. And in order to prep for them to come, I had to get the guest room ready and like make sure that the sheets were changed, all that sort of thing. But I was making sure that I have like a little charger. This is my favorite tip to people with guest rooms is to have one of those upright phone charger things, have it all plugged in. And I was just so pleased because I have my cute, cute, cute Article table lamp that I love so much. The Fila table lamp, it's this gorgeous, rich sage green color, and then it has an open bottom, so you can just slide the charger underneath and they don't have to war for each other on the nightside table.
Speaking of nightside tables, Article also has some amazing options for those, including one that's like a floating shelf with a drawer. So if you have a really small space or you don't want to take up all of that room on the floor, you just mount it on your wall and then you put your little Fila lamp on top.
The thing that we love about Article, Melody and I have told you all of the things in our homes that we have from Article and how much we love them. They're fast, there's affordable shipping and assembly. They deliver across the US and Canada. You also have support whenever you need it. If you have any problem, their support team is excellent. It is not bots. It is not people just like throwing you in a loop. You can actually get support right away. And they have 30-day satisfaction guarantee, so you can shop with confidence knowing that if you're not completely in love with your new furniture, you can easily return it. Right now, Article is offering our listeners $50 off your first purchase of $100 or more. So maybe just go get 2 Fila lamps or go get a Fila lamp and the bedside shelf situation. So to claim, you go to article.com/culture and the discount will be automatically applied at checkout. That's article.com/culture for $50 off your first purchase of $100 or more. There's a way that you distinguish between personal style and the way that fashion markets to us. Like, I'm trying to remember how you phrase it. It's like that's style and that's marketing. Like,
yes.
How do you discern between those two?
So I think that when clients sit down with me and we start to do an intake, I tend to hear a lot of things about all the rules, right? Unpacking this kind of secret language. Like, I've hired a stylist and she's going to help me speak the secret language of the cool, stylish people so that I can follow the rules and I can finally be correct when I go out into the world. They will see me as one of them.
Right.
And it is this sense, and like the undertone of almost everything I hear from clients who struggle with this kind of thing is very similar, which is like, are we wearing wide leg pants now, or are we in skinny jeans, high rise, mid rise, low rise? Am I not allowed to wear socks? Am I not allowed to wear no-show socks? Like, is this not what's going on?
Yeah.
And what that comes from is the sense that your job in becoming stylish is to sort of see what the cool people over there are doing and try to replicate it correctly. And then, as anybody who's tried that knows, by the time you learn the language has changed, right?
Yeah.
By the time you got rid of your skinny jeans are back.
Yeah.
And that, what I tell people, is marketing, right? That's not style, that's marketing. That is a very, very manipulative and savvy machinery of industry that is designed to make sure that you are feeling inadequate and anxious and less than, and also ideally underinformed about the more objective parts of style as well. Fabric composition, silhouette, measurements, cut, color, things like that, so that you also are more likely to make an impulse purchase, right? You didn't check that fabric composition. They can get away with making things that are shittier and lower quality and that you won't even really notice because you don't know better, right? The less you know and the worse you feel, the better of a customer you are.
Yeah. We have so many questions today. I cannot I really narrowed them down. We got so many good ones, but we're going to start with like a couple more philosophical questions building on what we've already talked about with style. And then for the Ask It Anything section, we're going to answer 3 questions from listeners with specific style conundrums. One about dressing for both in-office and remote work, one about dressing for work as a teacher, and one about what to wear when it's really, really hot. So if you want to get that extra 30 minutes of really solid style wisdom, become a paid subscriber at patreon.com/culturestudy. Let's start with this question from Jordan.
With personal fashion, there's a sense that if you just found the exact right pieces for you, all of your problems would be solved. It's a quest centered on self-knowledge and optimization. But the self is dynamic and modern clothing is deeply flawed, so it can be a bit of an aesthetic treadmill. I'd love to hear more about how others suss out the difference between trying to find items that help you feel like yourself, especially as that changes, and feeling pressure to view consumption as an existential solution.
Oh, mwah,
I know, right?
mwah.
Right. Well, we always
Gorgeous.
say that, like, I love how so many of our listeners submit questions that, like, kind of answer the question in their question because it's such a smart question. Like, they're working through some of their own ideas that they've processed already in this question. So, what comes to mind when you hear this?
Yeah, so I'm hearing sort of two things at once. I'm hearing a bigger picture sort of existential question that is like so gorgeous and I can't wait to talk about it. And then I'm hearing a more material and concrete question about sort of how can you possibly tie something as fixed as clothing to like the fickleness of person. I
Yeah.
love that I'm like, and then there's that objective question and then it's like
Yeah.
the fickleness of humanity.
Yeah.
So okay, so the first part, which is like the meatier
Yeah.
half of this, and I just love this question, is we're pitched personal style as both like a solution to the ickiness of like the consumerism treadmill, but then it just kind of puts us back on
Yeah.
that treadmill. And
Yep.
the reality is, my opinion is that personal style is not a solution, it is a result. And that personal style can emerge not through consumption of things, right? Like a sort of ravenous quest to buy up stuff so that you can be stylish is both bad whether or not it worked. It's just like morally bad.
Yeah.
And also doesn't work. So then it's cool because you don't have to do it at all.
Yeah.
And to me, the clients who are always the most difficult to support in their style journey are the clients who are very, very far away from themselves as human beings.
Yeah.
Because there is no way to sort of we live in an era that is saturated with imagery, and it is very easy to imagery and affiliate links. So it's very easy to click, copy, and paste to try on like you're a paper doll, whatever your influencer person paid advertisement comes up on your feed, and it's not going to feel the same as wearing something that feels like it came out of your life because it made sense for you. And that is, of course, super lofty. But the reality is like, and by the way, I would say there are probably way more kind of like cool dressed people who suck and are far away from their like selves as people than there are like wonderfully kind of grounded human beings who maybe to the average person are not well dressed. Like I would pick that 100 times over. And again, I think that's because to me, personal style is not an aesthetic. It's a practice.
Yep.
And it comes less from did you buy a bunch of things that express you? And actually more, I think, from buying less, like discernment and restraint. I didn't, we are, especially when like truly you cannot take a step without being advertised to.
Yeah.
That it's really comes much more from what you don't buy than what you do.
Yeah.
And so I guess that would be my answer there is like personal style, how are you bringing that about and how you make do with what's already in front of you, with what's around you, with what your life demands, with what your body demands, right? And then the piece about this sort of expression of like, it's supposed to be this expression of your personhood and your humanity, but that we change all the time.
Yeah.
That's part of why I really don't like a lot of, and I don't mean any disrespect, but there's a lot of style solutions out there that, in my opinion, repackage the problem and then sell it back to you as a solution, which is like this kind of confinement of your 3 words, your 2 words, you're this body type, you're this color story, and it is all the same crap, which is like here's all these external things, these things to put you in a box. And the sort of limited number of words in particular comes up a lot because I think the only stylish people we see most of the time are either brands or celebrities or influencers who are brands. And these are all people who have an ulterior motive, which is that they have to be packageable to somebody.
They
to an
have to be
entity.
able to sell an affiliate link in order to succeed, particularly in today's like
Totally.
larger. Yeah.
And so when you see an influencer who seems to have a very like something I hear a lot is like consistency, like they have a really
Yeah.
consistent aesthetic. And I'm like, you're not a brand, so you don't have to have a consistent aesthetic.
Yeah.
You could look at my Instagram. I mean, I just moved to a farm, but I also love to wear a sexy dress. And then half the time I'm wearing like Carhartts and a t-shirt and, you know, work boots. And both of those things are me and a million things in the middle.
Yeah.
So that's the sort of, again, the more abstract. Sorry, I could write a dissertation on this. The final button on this, I will say, on a really, really material level, is that clothing, and this is where that knowledge and information comes in handy. Clothing is not the whole sentence, right? Each garment is like a word in a sentence. And so it's, if you actually understand how clothing behaves, where it performs well, right? How the material's going to breathe or not breathe, fit or not fit, how that color's going to interact with another. And I actually wrote about this recently for my newsletter Style School, where I talk about trying to take my Los Angeles city girl wardrobe and without doing a bunch of shopping, edit it to make sense for a year living on a farm, which is what I'm doing right now. And that's only possible by being able to look at the clothes as what they are and remembering, okay, well, if I used these pants in this context with heels and a blouse, what happens to them when I use them in this context with rain boots and, you know, a work jacket?
Yeah.
And that you get, the more fluent you are in this language, the more capable you'll be of moving the pieces around and using them in a context that suits you as you inevitably change without needing to start over each time, right? That a lot of these garments are extremely versatile when you've purchased them because you understand them instead of like purchasing them because you saw them on an influencer.
Right. I wonder if others have had this experience of like finding an item of clothing or a style of an item of clothing, and then it becomes your personality for like 2 years, right? So when I was 24, maybe 25, I went back to school shopping. I actually went back to school shopping. This is when I was in grad school. I didn't have hardly any money, but I had a little bit of money that I wanted to buy. Like I was going to be a TA. And I was like, okay, I need like a little bit. What's going to like be something that makes me feel like me, right? And we went to Nordstrom in Portland. I was living in Eugene, Oregon. I was going to the University of Oregon. And I was the famous, Nordstrom half yearly sale. And they had these boots, which now are very, very familiar to everyone. It was the classic Fry riding boot.
Mm-hmm.
And I had never bought anything that expensive. Back then, they were like $240. But I looked at them and I tried them on, and they were so different from anything that I owned. And like my friends that I was with were kind of like, and I was like, they must be mine.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot, like, my entire wardrobe rotated around those boots for the next 4 years of my life, if not more. Like, I wore them with everything. I wore them with dresses. I wore them with shorts. I wore them with pants. I wore them every single scenario, but they like just felt like me. And so sometimes I'm just trying to chase that high of like, what thing can I then use as my like that item? And it doesn't have to be like a specific boot or a specific pant. Like in 2014, the thing was I tried on a jumpsuit before jumpsuits like became everywhere, and I was like, this is me. And I didn't realize it would be and continues to be my fashion personality. But like, as people say, like sometimes you just really like, it returned me to my 7-year-old self, like this sort of feeling that I had in clothes when I was 7, and I loved that. Rompers even more so. But does that make sense? Like, and it's not necessarily about like buying the thing that is marketed to me. It's more like, how do I find that one thing that does that for me?
Okay. So first of all, love that. Yes, I had a pair of Nine West combat boots that I found at a thrift store in LA called Wasteland when I was 15, and I still have them. And I haven't worn them in like 15 years, but they were so me for like a 4-year chunk of time.
Yeah.
That I put more money resoling and refixing the zippers and everything than I spent on them at the time.
Yes.
And worth every penny. And I'm sure I will come back to them. You can't force it. You can't force
that's the
that.
thing.
You can't.
No.
And I think what you're getting at, honestly, and it depends, but what you're feeling is affirmed. And for some people, that comes from something that feels a little bit more like a security blanket. Like, I know that when I put this thing on, I'm going to feel like myself, and that gives me either like wiggle room for everything else, or like with the jumpsuit, right? I think boots are a little different because they don't take up as much surface area. They're not the whole outfit ever, but they add such a tone. And a jumpsuit is kind of the whole thing. So you're kind of one and done. And there's like an effortlessnthat appeals to some people. And for other people is like dreadfully boring. And, and that's not to say it's boring for you, right? Like, it's just but you don't get they live for variety. And for other people, that variety is like the most stressful daily decision fatigue they could possibly imagine, right? And I've seen both sides of that equation. But what you're talking about at its core is this skill that I try to teach my clients a lot, which is my dad is a chef, and he has this tattoo on his wrist that on the underside of his wrist it says taste, and on the above part of his wrist it says adjust, which is sort of the like taste it and then season it. Sort of with like what part of your hand are you looking at when you taste versus when you adjust. But I use that phrase taste and adjust all the time, which is just kind of life. But it's really applicable for clothing, which is, I think a lot of people will put on an outfit and maybe on paper or the objectives, right? There's sort of the objective half of clothing, which is like, is it comfortable? Does it fit you? Like the sort of physical realities. And then there's the more abstract. There's the messaging, right? Is it girly? Is it edgy? Is it masculine? Is it formal? Is it professional? These things that clothing communicates, and that humans kind of instinctively we pick up on those messages. And so oftentimes I think like with the fry boots, for example, a piece like that is going to allow you, if we do a little forensics on it, right? Like those fry boots are a little bit edgy. They're a little bit sort of like westerny, outdoorsy, rugged. They are casual. They're warm. They're grounding. And so it gives you the ability to be a little bit more flexible with the garments you put around it, because when you add those fry boots into the mix, it's going to kind of always tweak the tone towards something that feels relevant to who you are in that moment. And sometimes that can be a single piece that you come to every single day. You just top, right? It's the sort of like I put this seasoning on everything and then I like it. It's like, great if that works for you. And then sometimes it's not going to be that one piece every day. It's going to be understanding when you look in the mirror and you go, okay, I like this, but it's not edgy enough, right? That instead of just looking in the mirror and going, blech, I've failed, take it off. It's off, it's bad, this is wrong. Going, what is this feeling too much of, or what is this feeling not enough of? And then what garment from my wardrobe can I add, swap, or take off to bring that sort of messaging balance back to where I want it? And I would say 99% of the time, it's actually that people are missing some of their own complexity. So they've put on their girly dress with their girly shoes, with their girly jewelry, and suddenly they feel sort of like a poofy princess.
Yeah.
And for some people, that is how they like to dress every day. But for others, that feels like, well, I know I wanted to wear this dress because I think it's really pretty, but now I feel like I'm in costume as somebody else. Yeah. And that's a perfect opportunity where it's like, well, yeah, let's put on those fry boots with this frilly dress. And then I think it's going to bring in, you are a layered person. Your outfit can also be sort of emotionally, aesthetically layered as well.
Yeah. Today's episode is brought to you by Lola Blankets. So I was just talking about how my friend and her kids are here for the week, and the cutest thing happened. One of them woke up yesterday morning and was like, I just love it at Auntie Blondie's house. This blanket is so comfortable. I just feel so cozy. Guess what I did?
What?
I shared the Lola blanket. I gave him
good of you.
My Lola blanket. I know, I'm the best. But it really is like the most comfiest in the whole world. That feeling of just being so comfy, just like feeling like you are nuzzled and safe. That is the feeling that Lola gives you.
One of my friends that I gave a Lola blanket to as a gift told me that her 12-year-old daughter just gave her almost 12-year-old daughter just gave her birthday list of what she wants for her birthday. And at the top is her own Lola blanket.
I feel like most of my problems as a teen girl would have been solved if I haven't had a Lola blanket. Like,
I
just
agree.
would have made me more confident, more comfortable in so many different ways.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about a Lola blanket. It really is as soft as we say it is. You can machine wash it. You just have to follow the instructions. And if you do, then it never loses that softness. And this is such a big difference than, like, there are so many plush blankets that you can buy, but you wash them once and suddenly they do not feel the same way ever again. And personally, since I have 2 shedding dogs in the house, like, I have to be able to wash a blanket. So I love being able to do that with my Lola. It is the best gift to a teen girl, to anyone in your life who, like, you want to, like, someone who has everything that you're like, oh, this person's fancy. You can give them this.
Mhm.
For a limited time, our listeners can get 40% off select Lola blanket products with the code CULTURE at checkout. Just head to lolablankets.com and use code CULTURE to get 40% off your order. After you purchase, they're going to ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and let them know that we sent you. Wrap yourself in luxury with Lola blankets. Today's episode is brought to you by Gooder. I'm training for the New York Marathon, the New York City Marathon, and that means right now I am doing some long runs in what feels like very hot heat to me. I know to other people that might
So
not
it's
be
like
the case.
70.
Listen, I live on the water, so the humidity is high. It makes it feel hotter. And
So like 75.
but I had to do 18 miles the other day, and it's just a lot of time, like, in reflective areas, like you're running, on the blacktop. Like, that's a lot of sun exposure to your eyes. And I wear a hat always, but I need more. And so I wear my Gooder sunglasses. I have the white. They have like this blue reflection thing. They also make it so that people can't see, like, the suffering in my eyes when they pass me on the road. But I wore them for 18 miles. That's 3 hours. They did not slip once. I've had Gooders for at least 8 years. I love them. I wear them gardening. I wear them for, like, a fun night out. I wear them. This is, like, apropos for this episode. Like, they are the dream that we were promised of, like, the smooth transition from work to play.
Absolutely.
That is the Gooder. They come in so many different shapes, so you can figure out, like, what looks good on your face shape. I like just the very classic ones. They have, like, cool aviator ones. Do not work for me. I hope they work for you. There's just so many options. And they are also at a price point that makes it so that you do not feel stressed about your sunglasses at all times, which, like, can actually ruin, for me, like, if I'm trying to have a good time and I'm out in a place where I need to have my sunglasses, I just start worrying about my sunglasses all the time. And I don't worry about my Gooders in the best way possible. So if you're ready to upgrade your eyewear to something functional, fashionable, fun, and affordable, head to gooder.com/culture to claim $10 off your first order. That's GOODR.com/culture. This is a great segue to our next question, which also harkens back to a little bit of what you were talking about with, like, the personal style in 3 words. This is just about restriction generally. This comes from Rebecca.
Is describing your personal style in 3 words or having a capsule wardrobe a diet? My personal style has always been somewhat limited by my size. I currently wear a size 14, but have other times been an 18 or a 20. So my style has evolved with some general sense of what I like: colors, graphic prints versus florals, specific shapes, but I don't like being hemmed in. And when I'm at the store, there's only so many pieces that even fit me. So, is the construct of having a 3-word style a diet?
So this question of is blank a diet comes from Virginia Soul-Smith at Burnt Toast. And it's basically asking, like, is the thing, like, that we're talking about, is this a form of restriction that will ultimately fail? And that we will feel like failures because we failed at it.
Yeah.
So how do you think of the 3-word style in the capsule wardrobe, especially when people, like, the restriction is not necessarily something that they are choosing?
Yeah. So I think you have to separate those 2 things out. I don't I think I want to talk about just, like, the limitation of availabilities over, like, truly a size 12 and really, it used to be a little bit more generous than that, but it's contracted back down to like over a size 12.
Yeah.
I think that's a very worthwhile conversation that's just not the same as the restriction inherent in this like 3-word method or Kibbe body typing or color typing or there's a million, there's like capsule wardrobe. That was the other one.
Capsule wardrobe, so huge in like 2018.
Yeah.
I feel like it's still here, but like was so big then. Right.
It comes up all the time. So
you're like,
yes. So I want to talk about the capsule wardrobe separately.
Yeah.
I do think these are all diets, in less in that they're inherently, they are all inherently restrictive. So yes, I think the point behind them, my like touchstone for this is like, I am a big maintenance phase podcast super fan. I feel like I've listened to every single episode, and I think that they talk very, very eloquently there about, and this is what Virginia is also getting at, right? Which is this system that is so ridiculous, essentially, that it is impossible to achieve it, and you will fail, and it will feel like it's your fault and not its fault. And I would say with clothing, sometimes it's because it's extremely restrictive, like the 3-word method. And by the way, I want to be careful sometimes because people do sometimes find this helpful. And there are a handful of different people who sort of like claim, whether you call it the 3-word method or like finding your adjectives, or there's a bunch of different versions of this. So I don't want to just be like pinning down on the 3-word method because that's just one person's thing, and I don't want to be like, it's not her. This is a cultural thing.
Yeah.
But the other thing that style advice in particular has a lot of is like malicious or not intentionally malicious, but very sort of convenient opacity. So this is to me, and I've been written about very negatively on the Kibbe body typing boards. So maybe this will be another notch in my bedpost over there. But Kibbe body typing is something that gets brought up to me a lot. And to me, it is truly the most unintelligible body typing system I've ever heard of. It takes the already complicated messaging we receive about how we are and are not supposed to present our bodies to the world, and then grounds it in language that is like so unintelligibly convoluted. And then you go onto these message boards, and this is the same thing with all of these color analysis things too, which is that you then go onto these message boards and you find a bunch of people who are sad about what they were assigned because it doesn't actually reflect the things that they're like, that makes their heart sing.
Yeah.
You find people who have gone to multiple sort of practitioners who have confidently and concretely assigned them completely different things that contradict each other and sort of reveal that the emperor has no clothes, no pun intended, but that like, if you are a Kibbe body type, I'm going to get this wrong, but it's like, I'm a soft, gamine, dramatic. And then I went to another person who said, I'm I don't even know what the other kinds would be, but they're, whatever. Or I'm a bold winter, but I'm actually a soft summer. And it's like, it kind of like takes the veil off of these things that are really like, because this is subjective. Like, you watch these color typing videos where some, they're mean. It's like, look how dead you look when you're wearing this color. And it's like, what? Well,
like, and like, okay, so the other thing too, I think, so some of it is like you look dead or you look old. And then some of it, especially with the overall body typing, the thing that they never talk about, or that they know that they're not supposed to say as much anymore as explicitly, is like everything is about a fear of wearing something that, God forbid, makes you look fat. Right?
Absolutely.
This is the core of like seeking out flattering at all costs, flattering in quotes here, right? It's like, and I've done my own work, a lot of personal work on like what I mean when I say that something is flattering, what anyone means when they say that it's flattering. What they're trying to get at is like, does it make me look fat or does it not make me look fat? And like, if you don't name that anti-fatness, like,
I have to do that with clients all the time because a lot of the time people reach out and they think what they're going to get from me is somebody who's going to sit in front of them and like be honest about whether or not they're quote unquote pulling off the clothes that they're wearing. And I like to do exactly what you're talking about, which is I like to name it. Oh, what do you mean pulling off? And they'll be like, well, does this work for me? And I'm like, what does work for me mean?
Right.
And then when I drill them until we get to a point where does it make me look fat? And I'm like, if that's actually not what I do. I can't provide. I don't provide that service. It's also, I've worked with over 600 people at this point in my career, and I can just tell you there is no objective flattering. So I have clients with very arguably similar body types where one person absolutely loves the way this outfit makes her hips look wide because it makes her feel really feminine, or it makes her feel really sexy, or it's a feature she's worked really hard on, or it's a feature she's worked really hard to make peace with. And then I have another client who is non-binary and is made to feel extremely dysphoric by an outfit that emphasizes the width of their hips because it feels very femme in a body that they are trying to present as more masculine. And so this idea that I can just sit there and sort of go, yes, no, that's not the skill I'm building. The skill I'm actually building, and the question that we're going to ask over and over and over and over again is, do you like it? And if you like it, why? And if you don't like it, why not? And by the way, that's allowed to apply to your body. You're allowed to not like something.
Yeah.
It's a little muckier because when you get there, it's like, okay, well, do you actually like this, but you don't think your body deserves it, or you're afraid of what people will think about your body in it, or do you not like it? Those can be hard to disentangle.
Yeah, I see a lot of that happening with people figuring out how they feel about like midriff showing.
I'm on that journey.
Right. Like
I'm on that journey.
Being like my ideal was like, there's this episode of Sex and the City where there's a rooftop party and Kim Cattrall is wearing these high-waisted shorts,
gingham.
Which the gingham. I love that you knew exactly what I was talking about.
And, you could have stopped at roof. I knew.
And I did, like, at that time, wearing a high-waisted short, which like very almost like a 50s silhouette, right? Which is has been back for a while. But I remember looking at that and being like, interesting. Like, this is a different way, especially at that time in the early 2000s, of wearing something, like showing off, like loving showing your midriff, that doesn't involve wearing like low slung jeans, right?
Yeah.
But then also just people who are like, oh, there's just this understanding that like if you have a fat roll, there's no way that fat roll should be visible to anyone at any time. That like somehow it like must be covered under penalty of like social exclusion. And people being like, but I like the feel of this midriff bearing top. Like, this feels awesome to me and I'm going to do it.
Yeah, hell yeah. And that actually brings up the one other piece when the people are like, am I pulling this off? Is I would say 80% of the time it's like a fat phobic question about like, does this make my body look bigger? And then the other 20% of the time it's an ageist question about like, am I too old to be like allowed to have fun?
Yeah.
Or to feel like to show this part of my body.
Right.
Or has that ship sailed and now I just hide away until I die?
Totally.
Because I'm 34.
Because I'm 34.
The other, I just how people are. The other part of that question, by the way, which was about the lack of size options. I don't want to miss that part.
Yeah,
is like that's like we're talking about it. That's a systemic issue. You know, it is of the. Yeah, it is like it's up there with all of the biggest issues in fashion. And I would say on the consumer side is the biggest issue. I think we have existential crises on the production side as far as sort of treatment of workers and sustainability practices and things like that. But on the consumer front, I think size inclusivity and like adaptive, disability friendly inclusivity are like just absolutely the bar, as my friend Alicia Cole, who is a stylist, says, the bar is in hell for plus size fashion. And that is true.
Well, and it all goes back to anti-fatness, right? Because a brand, it's not that they don't want to make money off of people who are in larger sizes. It's that they don't want to understand themselves as a fat brand, right? Like just that fear at the core, which is there's fucked
a million. There's a million reasons, right? It's a lack of, right, just like even viewing fat people as humans worth designing for, of not wanting fat people seen in their clothes. Sometimes it is, I would say, like a systemic inertia around some of the logistics of like, and I'm not saying this to justify why it doesn't happen. I'm just saying like this is the way this has like deepened hideously in this industry is like there's not a lot of people who have put the time and energy into understanding pattern making and size grading for plus sizes. And so that knowledge is not as abundant as it should be. And the people who have taken the time to learn about it, it's just fewer and farther between, and then have invested money in perfecting it. Again, it's like 99% of the time, ironically, it's like these tiny, tiny little brands who are scraping by on razor thin margins, who just either like the designer themselves is fat and they're like, I want to wear my own clothes, so I'm going to get good at this. Or just care and are like, we can fucking do this. And it's ridiculous. And unfortunately, in the last like 2 or 3 years, we had like a sort of moment of like, are we finally going to be more size inclusive in fashion in general and have better size ranges and stuff? Or are we going to just have, go up to a size 12 and say sorry and pretend that fat people don't exist? Right. And I think with the rise of GLP-1s, the fashion industry has essentially taken this kind of quietly and not so quietly as an opportunity to excuse themselves from the labor of servicing what is quite literally a majority of the marketplace.
I will briefly shout out both Big Undies and Burnt Toast, Virginia Soulsmith's Patreon, and especially Virginia's Jeans series, Jeans Science series, where she talks a lot about, this was so illuminating to me, how part of the problem with the pattern cutting, as you pointed out, is that like they just try to like apply larger size across the board. Like they're like, okay, well, if we're going to get a bigger size, then like we're going to just make it longer and wider. Like essentially like apply...
and then you end up with like a sleeve that's like 8 feet long and 70 yards wide.
Like zero attention
it's really
to how
awful.
But like bodies actually like are different sizes. So
I would love to shout out just on that note, a couple places. Like, to me, my favorite store on the planet is Berries, Berriez in New York, but they have an online store and they do other pop-ups. Berries is a mostly vintage and secondhand, but also carries some emerging designers store in Brooklyn, and she carries from size extra small through 5X. She sources meticulously. It is a thankless job. Emma is one of the most stylish, fabulous people I've ever met. I find a lot of my favorite designers as somebody who like very consistently wears a size medium through her, because the work she's doing to find, and not just find, but also train and pattern and sample. Like she both sources vintage, but she also will work with independent designers who don't have size inclusive size ranges to do like plus size runs and help them actually get their patterning and their grading right. And I cannot recommend her enough. We also have Connolly Goods in Canada, who does like a lot of denim and workwear. I know that Corinne is a big fan of Connolly. I got to work with Connolly a couple months ago, and she's just an angel. And that's for like her specialty when it comes to jeans is 100% cotton denim, but with an elastic waistband. So you get the durability and quality of a non-stretch jean, which is really, really hard to find like over a size 14 or 16. Yeah. But you also get the size flexibility of an elastic waistband and something made ethically, locally, because the reality is, for the most part, plus sizes are serviced by the fast fashion industry, and that needs to change.
Okay, so now we're going to keep going with this conversation for Ask Ann Anything. As I mentioned up top, we have 3 specific style conundrums from listeners. So if you want to hear more of these practical tips from Sophie, head to patreon.com/culturestudy. Sophie, this was such a pleasure. I'm so happy. This was like everything that I could imagine. Like, I really want to go and shop my closet right now.
Yes.
I was like, I'm going to wear something for this podcast that is very me, but I also don't want it to be very... like too obvious that I was dressing for the podcast with the stylist.
Where I'm only going to see your shoulders.
You can
I
see
almost
my
said something when you logged on. I almost said like, "Oh, cute."
I do get that. People tell me all that. It's sort of like the 2 things that people try to do when I do a session with them is like they either try to like clean their closet before I come over, or they try to like dress up a lot for me because they're like, they want to impress me. And I'm like, it's kind of like waxing for the gynecologist. I'm like, you don't need to do this. You don't need to do
like
this.
my hairstylist is always like, please don't wash your hair. I want it filthy when you come in. And I get so self-conscious about like how my hair looks. And she's like, shut up. Like, I'm going to make your hair look good. So yes. Where can people find you on the internet if they want to hear more from you, learn more about you, everything?
They can find me at sophiestraussstyling.com. That is my website that has how to book with me and work with me. Or if you want to join my newsletter and membership program, Style School, that's also there. And then I am very active on social media. They can find me on Instagram at Sophie Strauss Styling.
Amazing. Thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Culture Study Podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts because we have so many great episodes in the works, and I promise you don't want to miss any of them. If you want to suggest a topic, ask a question about the culture that surrounds you, or submit a question for our subscriber-only Advice Time segment, go to our Google form at tinyurl.com/culturestudypod or check the show notes for a link. And if you want to support the show and get bonus content, head to patreon.com/culturestudy. It's $5 a month or $50 a year, and you'll get ad-free episodes, an exclusive Advice Time segment, and weekly discussion threads for each episode. The Culture Study Podcast is produced by me, Anne Helen Peterson, and Melody Rowell. Our music is by Poddington Bear. You can find me on Instagram at Anne Helen Peterson, Melody at Melodious47, and the show at Culture Study Pod.